Hello, and welcome to this new episode of the Creativity Question, where we explore what creativity is and how it works. Today, I'm very, very happy because I have a guest I've known for quite a long time. He is a designer, a facilitator, and creative data strategist. And currently, he is the head of the interaction design program at Copenhagen Institute of Interaction. He has 2 decades of experience working across multidisciplinary teams across cultural, educational, and social impact sectors. And his work centers on research, social impact, and community-based design interventions. Prior to this institute, he helped establish Data for Change as a nonprofit organization. Data for Change works within a wide array of civil society organizations, activists, human rights defenders, and creative talent collaborating at the intersection of data, design, technology, and journalism to forge real change and lasting impact, which is obviously fabulous. Before that, he served as design director at data and design studio Beyond Words in London. And earlier in his career, he ran his own studio and design collective in Rotterdam, in the Netherlands, Content Context, where he also taught graphic design at the Willem de Kooning Academy and lectured in the fashion department on design, communication, and lifestyle trends. Prior to founding his own studio, he works also as a designer at GNT and design at Seymour, sorry about my pronunciation,
That's okay.
Seymour Design in
Sang
New
Seymour
York.
Design. Yeah.
Thank you. And Winter House Studio. Across these roles, he has had the opportunity to work on and lead projects for organizations including the UN, World Bank, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Google, the Guggenheim Museum, MoMA, the New York Times, Cooper Hewitt, Al Gore, and Queen Circuit of Talent, among others. Wow, that was a long biography. Um,
Sorry.
Please welcome uh, Mr. Michael Brenner. Welcome, Michael. Thank you for
Thank
being
you,
here.
Fabi. Are you kidding me? Thanks for reading off that. But I mean, when you were, I was like, well, who's she talking about? Like,
Do you remember all of this?
um, parts of it, much of it's a big creative blur, let's say. But yeah, no. I remember every single minute of it. It's been quite a unconventional design path for someone who was classically trained as a graphic designer back in the day.
But this is what makes creativity amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So let's start with the first question of this podcast, which is,
Okay.
Michael, what does creativity mean to you?
Well, Fabi, I was really hoping that we would explore some things together and figure out what it means because, to be honest, I have so many different weird, unconnected ideas that maybe we'll be able to figure out some sort of common narrative through the mess that's in this head.
Oh, that's daunting. So you want me to answer my own question?
Yeah, no. I mean, we're gonna traverse a bunch of different things, but I mean, I've been thinking about this like prior to coming on and thinking a little bit about what does it mean to be creative in the creative act, and I've been oh since I've also taken on this new role at the institute, and one of the primary um advantages of the institute itself is that it's democratizing design, right? The program itself is an interaction design program, but the idea of interaction design when it first started out has kind of outpaced itself and outlived itself, that it's basically now we're just talking about design and the design of interactions. And the idea of the design of interactions is really like, how do we connect the dots and how do we bridge uncommon things? And really it's this kind of like collision of domains where it's like, now we're talking about like service design, we're talking about UX UI, we're talking about, beyond just physical computing, talking about you know with our, frenemy AI, what are we going to do with that, and how is it changing the quote unquote creative space and the design landscape, and what are the ethics behind its creation, and all of the things that were created that were then hoovered up by all of these, you know, LLMs to create quote unquote these platforms. Like what happens to the, give credit where credit's due. And then, we're just kind of all sitting here interacting with this chat bot effectively, and it's returning results that were, hey, this is pretty cool. But, what's beyond that? What are the implications of it? And how can we actually use it as a more, let's say, creative, I don't want to say co-creator, but a tool in which we're not fully surrendering our agency and decisions over to, because we're simply wowed by the quite mediocre and average things it outputs. So, you know, we're quite focused in and around, how can we create more equitable and accessible futures and optimistic futures that are more desirable for everyone, and having a more positive outlook, and having a, let's say, an optimistic view of AI, and how we can kind of flip the script on its head so that it's more of a tool that gives us agency rather than something that we should fear, and so that we actually control it rather than the other way around. So I know we just went like, but so back to your original question, what does creativity mean to me? I think it's really this idea of taking something that might be uncommon and finding another thing that it could potentially connect to, and seeing what that connection creates. So it's, let's take the example of a pencil, for example. So there was this amazing book that was written in the 1950s, in 1958. I'll send a link to it so we can. It's so by this guy, Leonard Reed. He was an economist, and he took the basic idea of the pencil, that no single person contains the entire knowledge to create the pencil, right? Because the pencil is just more than a piece of wood with a piece of graphite on it, and the foil that's stamped into it, the little metal part that holds in the eraser into the top, right? It takes millions and millions of people around the world to get those raw materials. Those raw materials then need to be transformed into stuff. So whether it be the shaft of wood that the pencil holds or the graphite, those things need to be cut down, milled. Those things need to be then, put through machines. But who's making that machine? How did that machine come into play? So it's like the entire idea of any single human containing the knowledge to be able to create or do something is completely absurd. But collectively and together, we can link our dots and build those bridges to your body of knowledge, my body of knowledge. And when we get together and we start creating things and building up those ideas and then realizing those ideas, that's where I think real true creativity is. It's not a solo act. John Maeda said, was it design produces solutions to problems, and art asks questions. But I would slightly change that and actually say design provides answers to problems, and art and asks the questions, right? Because the solutions are an answer to a question. And sometimes the solutions or the answers are great, and sometimes they're not. So it all
Yeah.
depends on the context, right? And how things are put together. But it's yeah, it's those collisions of ideas and the act of, yeah, building bridges between uncommon things and even common things, and just creating something new from that. There's another thing that I've been really playing around with, this idea of elegant utility. So something that's connected in such a way that has elegance to it, right? It may seem effortless, it may seem seamless, it might seem absolutely beautiful to someone, but then to someone else, it may not seem beautiful at all or effortless at all, right? There might be friction there, or there might not be friction there. But for the person that I would say that it feels beautiful and seamless and frictionless for, and if it's adding value to their life and, making things better for them without imposing or creating a set of consequences that significantly impact someone else's way of being or way of living or way of existing, then I think that there's something really beautiful in that. But then there's also the idea that things then need to come with, or the things that we're creating or designing, with the big question of why. Why are we doing this, and what are the intended consequences? But then we also have to speculate about the unintended consequences. And right now we are in one of the biggest human experiments that just was unleashed on us 5 years ago. Like no one, even longer, like with the advent of the iPhone or any kind of digital tech that platforms, they were all designed in vacuums, released into the world with the idea of, let's see where it goes. We've seen where it's gone, and it's time to tap the brakes and figure out how we can kind of regain control a little bit. Probably
I
there's
can see
lots to unpack
I
in there.
I can see why you're a teacher because it's fascinating what you're telling me. Um, I think it's beautiful to think that creativity is a collaboration act. I think that too. I always think when people ask you, "Can you be more creative?" It's always puzzling to me because creativity is never one person or one
No.
brain product. It's actually a product of experiences and
Yes.
exchange and
Yeah.
conversations and problems as well, like you were
Yeah.
saying. So it is fascinating. And what's more fascinating is I find that every guest I'm having here is giving me a different answer. And that's beautiful and exciting, and also shows how human it fundamentally is.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we don't have one of anything, right? If you think about all the things like the types of chairs, tables, pens, types of keys, like types of rubber bands, like literally rubber bands have one function to hold. Well, they don't have one function; they have many functions. But look at all the different types of rubber bands we have, right? Based on what you perceive. Again, this is what comes back to like what you perceive to be aesthetically pleasing or functional to you, you're going to choose that type of rubber band, right? Or that type of chair, or that's why we don't all look the same or act the same or think the same. The idea that, yeah, the real power of creativity is having diverse perspectives and lived experiences, professional experiences, levels of experience, like at scales, right? Different scales, looking at a particular question and finding an answer that meets not only their frameworks and mental models, but also other people's, and is scalable enough and inclusive enough to be adaptable, right? A lot of the times now, even in design or creativity, it's it's the bridging of those systems and even trying to figure out how we can improve the systems that we fundamentally have. And then, what's really, really interesting, and we don't talk about enough, is what about non-human actors? What about people and species who are creative that we deem not to be, or we don't look at their acts as being creative because they're quote unquote not human? I mean, nature itself is super creative. Like it's created the entire planet that we live on, right? That system and that computer has been programmed, but it's evolving. It's evolving as we're putting input into it, and as we're disturbing it, it's evolving to survive. I mean, we've damaged it severely, but somehow it's still kicking on. And I think at some point, and we're already seeing it within the climate crisis, it rebelling. So is that a creative way of nature, dealing with the human problem?
Maybe nature is asking for help.
Oh, for sure. It's screaming.
It's
It's
asking
screaming.
for our creativity to solve this disaster we created.
Well, but even within that, it's like we need to stop looking at nature as something that is something to be dominated by humans, and look at a more centrist view where it's humans amongst nature, and everything that we do and create taps directly into it. And it's absolutely absurd. It's like, uh nature colonialism, that we're that we think that we can just come in, do whatever the heck we want, and then not suffer the consequences of it.
That's yeah, that's very true. I want to know what are your influences, because you said yourself, I read your beautiful biography, and you've done bits of everything, and you come from the States, and also you lived in different countries, and I'm sure that your influences must come from everywhere, right?
From the people that I meet, and from the places that I've traveled to and had the experiences of working with, alongside of, and who've always been, like once I really got into the, let's say, area of data and design, it completely changed everything, the way that I saw and data as a design material, and looking at it, that it basically gave me the ability to look at the world through different lenses. Because I mean, even if you think about data, like, I mean, data can be anything. If you can observe something, if you can measure something, if you can then capture those measurements in a kind of systematic way, put those things together, pull insights from it, synthesize information, turn that information into knowledge, and then that knowledge pass it on to someone else, and it becomes wisdom. But all of those different domain areas that I've had the opportunity to, let's say, observe and work with the data, have completely changed the way that I see things. And you start connecting those dots, right? But even the absurd idea that humans are taking observations, condensing it down into abstract metrics and other communication tools to make it more understandable. And now we're at the point of, no, we need to unpack those things and start telling the stories behind those things so that people can understand it better. It's like a weird, like, game of translation. And it's like, okay, we're gonna abstract this thing to then unpack it to then make it comprehensible again. But it needs to kind of go through that weird translation process and abstraction to I guess, yeah, not I guess, but to make meaning of it once you start putting everything together. um I think that I really find myself really inspired by science. there's I I'm not great at math. Love the idea of math. I can do basic maths, like your calculus, those kinds of things, but I really love quantum physics, because it's like it's amazing at how people can take math and make it so elegant to be able to explore the world. One of my favorite two of my favorite people, Niels deGrasse Tyson, and also there's an Italian quantum physicist,
Carlo
Carlo Rovelli.
Rovelli.
Yeah, yeah, Rovelli. I love his books. I love,
Me
like,
too.
because he takes such complicated ideas, and again, in a very creative way, makes them very accessible, so that you can understand what the smallest possible thing is that we can measure based on our current tools, which, by the way, are absolutely insane, that we can make tools and synthesize things to capture the smallest possible thing that we currently know and the largest possible thing that we currently know. Obviously, as technology and science grows, because the whole point of science is to prove itself wrong, which is amazing. And I wish that design had more, and the creative sector had more of that kind of philosophy behind it. Prove yourself wrong, because then you get onto something greater, right? And the idea that we've landed on the thing that's going to be the solution, it's like, well, it is only in the sense that right now, based on all the information that we currently have, it might be a great solution. But then 10 years down the road, we should revisit that thing. Primarily, let's say the big fat like social media, for example, or even digital like smartphones, or now even AI. Like there should be some sort of review process that's more humanity based for some of these larger, developments that we've designed, to say, hey, you know what? Actually, this isn't working. It's like, GDP being the worst metric to understand how it's an invented number, how societies are advancing. Meanwhile, you have Bhutan, who's created the happiness index, and that in
Oh,
instead of it's an amazing project, and like that is an indicator that puts people first, and you can actually better tell how a country's progressing by their happiness index, just based on the different metrics and variables that are associated with it, than GDP.
that is fantastic. I want to go live in Bhutan just to see how that works. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, we need more of this. So, do you think that we should review, for instance, social media? That's a hot topic, isn't it?
Well,
Should
I
we
mean,
find a
obviously, I
creative
mean,
way to socialize outside our phones?
but
Or,
that's but
or
that so
rather, for younger people, I see that
so there's
younger people don't spend time outside chatting, which is what I used to do when I was 15 all the time,
yeah. Well, that's I
right?
mean, we had the privilege, we can call it a privilege now, of growing up in an era where technology was still warm. And what I mean by warm technology is that it had a lot of tactile, like tangibleness to it, the telephone, rotary
Yeah.
dials, push buttons, these types of things, even early gaming systems, arcade games, TVs. It was less glossy. There was more texture to it. There was a warmth and a humanity to it. Um, but actually, with the youngest generation, I don't even know what we're on anymore. So it's like past Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen. There's actually a
I
bit like
think it's
let's
Gen
okay, so let's say
Alpha.
like
Mm,
12 to 18-year-olds that are currently on this planet. There's, I think, actually quite a big rebellion against the technology that was developed in the early 2000s. Like you see people more adapting to old digital cameras. There's an upsurge in buying DVDs, in vinyl, in cassettes. There's a ton of people now that like the maker space is kind of even more accessible and more open source because people are sharing more, that you see a lot of beautiful physical tangible pieces of tech coming out that are cutting against the grain of whatever Apple or Google, Samsung, like whomever has put it, Sony, whoever's putting that technology out. So it's 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 going to be interesting to see what the backlash is going to be. I saw a video the other day. It was funny. It popped up in one of my feeds, and there was this punk band. I think the kids must have been like 12 or 13, but it was an anti-AI protest song. And I was like, okay, there's some hope. There's some hope for this. I'll find the link and send it to you, but it was amazing. It was just like a complete anthem, like you would have seen maybe the early days of the Ramones or NoFX or even some like early Green Day. um it felt like it had that kind of raw, honest energy to it, but then of course they had all of that catalog and history to perfect the sound, so it sounds a little bit too polished.
Oh my God, I love that. I really need to see it.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I
it's just
mean,
it's
so
hilarious.
creativity is now about, I have this feeling that for you, creativity is a very human connection sort of tool, right? It's always,
Yeah.
and I mean, your experience also tells us that you've always worked in human rights and to improve society, to help people, which is obviously really commendable. And what are you doing now in terms of projects? Are you purely teaching or are you also
so as
starting some projects with your students?
so that's a great question. And so I mean they are my projects in terms of like
Wow.
there's a great there's a good I'm teasing. There's there's a great responsibility in terms of, providing space for social impact and creating the fact that the hang on, I need to phrase this carefully. This will be an edit. um the institute has been very generous and open with me to take me on with my unconventional design path to help explore more how we can implement the the learnings that I've taken from the field work that I've done to create, social impact, but then to put that into education. It's always been something that's been part of the institute, and it's something that is really at the core. And so that's why we made the connection, and it was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's push it as far as we possibly can and make sure, because in traditional design education, everyone talks about impact, but then it's never really part of the curriculum. And here it's at the heart and soul of the curriculum. And then allowing space for people to be able to explore what that means for themselves. Again, like the idea of this elegant utility and people being able to call, like what they think is beautiful, and how we can generate and create things that other people may feel the same way or may not feel the same way. That they'll find some value and purpose in what we're creating is yeah, they've carved out a beautiful space for it, and that's what really sets it apart and really makes it wonderful. So it's a wonderful program to explore and to find out what different definitions of what does creativity mean to you, what does design mean to you. We have people that are anthropologists, art history backgrounds, neuroscientists, artists, people who have worked on farms before. But then you also have people who have been classically trained as designers. And so when you get them together and put them, into a program for 12 months, and they traverse through these various briefs, the outputs that are created are absolutely profoundly just magnificent, in the sense
Mm.
that they're robust. There's a true sense of humanity to them, and you can see that they're looking beyond sometimes what traditional um, programs may be looking at, and also just the kind of what we've been taught design is. So there's that space for definition, there's that space for transformation, for exploration, and for growth. Um, so in terms of projects, obviously, like projects, like the classic idea of projects, um, not so much these days. I mean, there are some things here and there, but primarily, shaping the course curriculum. And then we do have projects that we take in that people, the cohort and the participants do work on. So it's more in that realm these days. Um, but there's always space,
Yes, of
you
course.
know. Yeah,
This
yeah.
brings me to your early days because I want to. This is another of the questions I always do to my guests, which is I want to know one moment of struggle and one moment of breakthrough of your career,
Nice.
if
Yeah.
there are any
Yeah, oh yeah,
that,
there's
stand out.
every week there's a struggle, and every week there's a kind of breakthrough. But like real momentous ones, I think um
And this is funny because everyone says the same, and I feel the same as well. It's
yeah,
always a struggle. it's,
it's always a
it's
struggle,
constant.
right?
Every time you have to come up with a new idea, a new solution, new inspiration. It is a
I
struggle. I
s-
think we kind of thrive in struggling
oh,
people who are
absolutely, in
designers,
friction, right? So
you
so that was
know.
one thing that I wanted to mention before about creativity. It's like creativity is born out of friction. It's when you feel as though you can't do the thing that you want to do. So then you figure out a way to do that thing. And that thing can be anything, right? It just, you
Yeah.
find a way out of it, or you find a way into it, or you find your way around it, or you find your way on the other side of that particular thing. It could be a positive thing, could be a neutral thing, could be a negative thing. It doesn't matter. It's just like you're on the other side of that thing. um, I think one, and this is very cliche, and it's very, I'm sure every seasoned designer says it at a certain point. But just letting go of the idea that you're perfectionism, embracing things that are imperfect and realizing that that is perfect. And very early on, those moments of tension that maybe there was like communication issues where I couldn't necessarily get an idea across, realizing that maybe there just wasn't enough information that was put into it and that was based too much on assumption, and those assumptions led to a very poor decision making line of inquiry. Yeah, it's I would say that one of the biggest struggles was probably keeping the studio alive in the Netherlands. That was very difficult, and that tested me on a lot of different levels. And a lot of that also, there was a bit of at the end of the day, it came down to a little bit of a language barrier, or maybe a big language barrier, and
Could
integration
be.
on my own side even. Yeah, I mean, so um and then that, at that kind of moment, it was like, okay, putting everything under the microscope and realizing there's got to be other ways of existing in the unknown and in the void, embracing it to be able to kind of get to the next step and feel comfortable with that. So, and that happens now all the time, like even throughout the pandemic, like throughout any, like, I mean, this is also a very difficult question to answer solely because, and you see all of the memes all the time. It's like we started our careers in the middle of, well, at least, is coming from the perspective of the States, a war in three
Yeah.
different countries between Iraq, Afghanistan, and, you know, in the region, even in Yemen, everything spilling out, financial crises. It just felt like we are constantly jumping over one crisis after another to like jump into something and reinventing. So that's why I think it's like every 3 or 4 years, maybe for our generation, it feels natural to just be like, okay, let's just explode everything and do something else.
I feel that. I remember 2008 as well, when
Yeah.
there was the crash,
Yeah.
and I was just finishing my master's in London, and I was ready to go and start finally working in London, and this happened, and
Yeah.
I found myself working in a bookshop because, of course,
Yeah.
without any title, I mean, without any experience in the field, it was really difficult at the time to find
Right.
work.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like we have had it a little bit harder than our parents maybe, because there's always something coming up. The pandemic was a big one.
Yeah. I mean,
But
even
yeah,
look at what's happening now. I mean,
yeah.
we've got yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And the consequences of those actions and the design of democracy has had profound, not sure how creative American democracy is. I mean, it is. It is when it
I mean,
functions
it's
really
very
well,
creative.
but it's very, very creative, right? I mean, yeah, it's very, very creative. Lots of loopholes to get around things.
Oh my God. Anyway. And what was your moment of breakthrough, Michael, when you said, "Oh my God, I really nailed this project"? When you had an idea and you thought this
This
will
is
work,
it.
and it actually did, and it all turned out exactly like you wanted, or even better.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
difficult, isn't it? It's almost as difficult as the struggling one,
Yeah.
because
No. So no, there is one particular
right.
moment. There was a project when I was still at Data for Change. We were at a we were at a design sprint, or one of our Data for Change design sprints in Beirut. I think this was 2018. And we had an amazing group come from Yemen called the Yemen Polling Center. They had the shortest distance to travel. However, they had to drive through uh, two active war zones on a bus, take like 2 or 3 flights to they traveled for 3 days in something that should have taken maybe, like 6 or 8 hours. And when they finally got to Beirut to work with the creative team, there was a little piece of tech that came out of that project, because they were still sending people, their researchers, out into the field, into, obviously taking as many safety precautions as possible, but you never know where violence or, something may erupt. So there was there was actually a moment where we're all sitting around, and this little Bluetooth hub came up as an idea based on a Raspberry Pi that could be powered by a little Samsung phone that didn't need much battery. And basically, we designed a little kind of portable polling station that could be dropped off at secure locations that people could go to, connect, actually not through Bluetooth, but through the little Raspberry Pi's kind of Wi-Fi enabled transmitter with their phone. We eventually got the Bluetooth working, and they could fill out the survey. And then people could, the researchers could then go and pick up the hub, rather than having people, going door to door and having conversations. So everyone could go at a time when they felt safe. The other cool thing about that is that there was some storage capacity on it as well. So it could, the Yemen Polling Center could also upload some much needed educational materials, because schools were basically shut down. There's no, there's intermittent electricity, there's intermittent internet, but because it basically acted as like a local area mesh network, people could also then daisy chain and share information with each other. So that really felt like a moment where it's like, okay, there's things that we can create that are super, let's say, low-fi, but have high value and have high impact for the people that are using them. And it doesn't have to be super flashy. It doesn't have to. It did one thing well, and that was enable people to connect and gain and access information. And that was it. It didn't try to be fancy. It didn't try to be flashy. It was just like, hey, here's this, and I'll send you, some photos and some
Please
documentation of it.
do.
But it was an
Everyone needs to
amazing,
see this.
yeah, it was really an amazing moment. And then, working with, I'm talking on behalf of the team now that created this, but being there and being part of it and helping them think through things, it was no, it was wild. It was absolutely wild.
It must have
So
been. I'm so
yeah,
jealous. It's such a great thing. You see, it sounds like something, some kind of cliche, but it is not. I deeply believe that when you do something and it also actually has a good impact on people, and you can see it, it makes such a difference.
yeah,
Um, I don't believe in being in our work, or any work for what matters, if it doesn't do anything good for people. Like, if we must at least try to
yeah.
have a positive impact, whether it's in our day job, in our other projects. Um, it I think that this is the most rewarding thing, and I'm not just saying it because I want to sound nice. It actually is. It is,
No, I
and
mean,
that's such a beautiful
there's,
project. Thank you
no, no
for sharing
worries.
that.
There's actually, to this exact point, I was just speaking with an amazing designer and strategist earlier today, and her name is Jenna Date, and she was saying that she was just telling her team that, like, whatever positivity, openness, humanity, sympathy, empathy that you bring to a project, it will inherently transmit itself into that project and come out on the other side with that project. And it was just a very beautiful I it's a very beautiful idea, but it's also a very true idea, right? The more that you put out positive, it's a dangerous word, but we're going to say energy, right? People vibrate, people have energies. I mean, and vibrate at different frequencies, and there's people that you get along with amazingly, and there's people that you don't get along with amazingly. That's just a fact of life. And chances are the people that maybe you don't get along with so amazingly is that you're just vibrating at different frequencies, and the energies and those frequencies are, you know, congruent to each other rather than kind of in balance.
That's very true. Yes, I totally agree with that. Um, so that was a success. That's beautiful. Um, Tell us how your opinion, if it has changed about creativity over time. If not opinion, sorry, your idea of creativity, has it changed since you started when you were a young student in New York? And
Yes,
how
absolutely. Absolutely. Like book it was more based on like any young designer, what's the cool thing that I can make, or the formal thing, or like, like, wow, design, it's all about, form, and sometimes it's about function, or how cool can we make it, or and now it's more about how useful can we make it, and what's the purpose and the value that it adds to someone's existence. And also, thinking about it from a holistic standpoint, what happens after that thing is no longer useful? What happens to it next? And then how does it kind of go back into the system without doing too much harm?
that is something that really worries me. For example, I
Oh,
always,
yeah.
I stopped buying too many clothes. Not only clothes, I found myself second guessing how many things I'm buying and why I'm buying them and what am
Right.
I gonna do with them.
Yeah.
Even when I don't need them anymore, I think, okay, can I recycle this? Can I give it to someone? Can this be useful instead of being just thrown away, which will probably end up in a Southeast Asia beautiful beach and ruin their lives? Because that's what happened. That's what we are doing most of the time. We have
I
been
mean,
doing for
yeah.
decades, and
I mean,
it's sad. It is sad.
there's enough of everything on Earth. I forget what the exact. Okay, so let's get into the data and the statistics of it.
Yeah.
Basically, the in the 90s we started to hit overconsumption, like, of one Earths. Now I think we're overconsuming by like 2.1 Earths every year now. So that's a big problem. But then also, in terms of the things that we make, especially like in and around clothing, I think that there's enough stuff on Earth. We have to look this up. That it's like good for 7 generations.
I
Like
know this.
if you stop producing everything today, there would be enough of everything, clothing, things for 7 generations worth of human beings.
I think that this is coming from a documentary on Netflix because I remember the exact expression. No, it's true. I think I
Yeah,
watched it. It was about clothing. It was about the fashion industry,
yeah.
and it's insane if we think about that.
Oh, it's
So
it's absolutely crazy.
this is something we can think about creatively, like how can we dress ourselves without consuming and throwing everything away, while also there's a part of the world that can't even have some of this stuff. It's
Yeah.
the imbalance is also really shocking.
The insanity of the timeline, or the reality that we live in, is that we have all of the data, we have all of the material, we have all of the things that we need to create a global society in which everyone prospers,
Yeah.
and that we take care of each other.
Yes. And that's our proposal for the next generation. I mean, for us, towards the
Yeah.
next generation, to
Yeah,
help
exactly.
them improving and trying
Achieve
to
it.
save, to achieve it. Yes,
Yeah.
everything. Um, I want to ask you a couple of last questions because I'm very aware I kept you here forever. And thank you so much for your time, Michael.
No worries.
I always ask my guests to, I mean, and it's really, really good having it from you because you're also a teacher and a mentor. So, what's your advice for uh, kids who want to start a creative career now?
the old cliches that literally anything is possible. Um,
I
I
love
would
that.
say that what's that? That
I
I mean
love that.
that
Anything is possible.
but
It's true.
it's true though. Like it's a matter of, and but this also comes from a position of extreme privilege, right? So it depends. Yeah. So it's to literally don't let anyone ever tell you that you cannot do something in terms of making yourself successful. If your heart is in it, and if you honestly believe that you can get through whatever it is on the other side and be where you want to be, then there's no reason for you not to do that thing. Because a lot of the times the pressures, whether it be from family, whether it be from society, that you should have to live your life a certain way, we all see those old kind of benchmarks crumbling, and that the world in which they were constructed in doesn't exist anymore. And so what's great about that is that it's completely left a nice big open canvas for us to rewrite that and to redefine what success is, right? You have one country with the majority of the world who measures GDP, and then you have another country in the world, Bhutan, who measures GNP, GNH, gross national happiness, right? So
And hooray for Bhutan, I'd say.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, be like Bhutan in terms
Yeah,
of their gross national happiness. Maybe not in some
amazing.
other aspects, but Uh, you know, but that idea to cut against the grain and to challenge authority and to challenge the preconceived conceptions that we have, not to assume anything. You're never going to know everything. The sooner that you accept that and know that and understand that as a human being in general, whether it be design or not, it makes things a lot easier.
That's true. And also knowing that even not being perfect is also okay, and you
Yeah,
can be
because
happy
there's no such
without
thing.
being the
Yeah,
first in
right.
everything.
Yeah.
And then before I leave you, tell us where people can find you, please. Where can they can find you? Have a website? Do you have books coming
So
out or
I
they came out?
I don't
Anything.
I do not currently have a website. I have a PDF. I
That's
have a view
great as
only.
well.
I have a view only Google Slides that I can link you out to. I have a LinkedIn profile. I have an Instagram profile. So I'll send you a bunch of links. But if you really want to find me physically, you can find me at the Institute in Bergamo in an 11th century monastery.
I mean, what's better than that? Everyone go find Michael in Bergamo in Italy, where he is currently teaching. We will put all his links anyway, sorry, handles on the website of the Creativity Question. And thank you so much, Michael. That was delightful. It was fantastic. Thank you for all this time you dedicated to us.
No, thank you so much for providing the space and this great platform for everyone to come on and talk about
Yes.
their ideas and visions of what creativity can be.
Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.